welcome to the Media Nerds Podcast. I'm Dan Badabonker.
And I'm Kenton Larson.
And Kenton, you've got about a 6-week window, I think, to get down to the States before the orange curtain drops.
I'm not going. I have not been since he won the first time, and I shall not. Maybe the way things are looking, I shall never go again.
Never go again.
I don't think so. Not even for a stopover at the airport.
Yeah, well, I mean...
I'll go to Iceland to get my cheap chips.
I gotta say, I don't want to dwell too much on the election, the American election, because we're all very upset about it. But well, I will say is that
as Canadians,
how did you watch the coverage? Like, what was your Tuesday night like?
Watched a little CNN momentarily. Watched a few YouTube personalities who I enjoy on that topic. And then when I started to get a sick feeling, I went to bed. I didn't want, and you know what? Because I knew if I find out what I think I'm going to find out, I'm not going to sleep.
Yeah.
So I was like,
I went to bed early. Yes, I'm glad I did.
Me too.
Yeah.
I got a best night's sleep in a long time. But then the next morning, I kind of knew what I was going to see, and I did.
I thought it was interesting that actually, as much as I complain about you having cable, I was not able to watch CNN because CNN did not stream on YouTube. I thought that was interesting. They chose not to stream on YouTube. They're staying behind their paywall. But other places were NBC, ABC, CBS, I believe, were all streaming their live coverage on YouTube. So I kind of was switching between those and kind of like I would just go until somebody pissed me off. I would switch back to the other, or until an ad came up and then I would switch. But it was all pretty much the same kind of coverage, and it's just them spinning their wheels until results come in. And then when results come in, they have their big graphic and their big sound effect, and they call this and that. So
John King starts massaging the board.
That's CNN. Yeah. CNN gets John King. Yeah. Everyone else is a John King imitator.
Yes, right. They sure do.
They do have everyone's got their own board and their own guy.
No hologram. No Princess Leia this year.
Oh, no, I saw somebody had a hologram.
Did it?
Yeah, somebody had it was like a Capitol. It was like the buildings in a hologram form in front of them or something like that. I can't remember who that was. But yeah, it was interesting to see. And there were a lot of I would say, quote unquote, amateur live streams going as well. Like YouTubers who are let's talk about politics, who are also doing the live streams.
I watched those.
Is that what you were watching?
Yeah, I was dipping in and out. There's a guy, David Pacman. No relation to the video game.
No,
Pac-Man.
but he's the crooked media guy, right?
Yeah, and he's and I like his
Pod Save America is the podcast.
Oh, is he from that?
I believe so.
I didn't know. I
wasn't
think
aware
he's part
of that group.
Okay,
I see him posting clips from that account.
He's funny. He is funny and amusing, and I kind of like his delivery. You know what side he's on when you watch him. He makes no apologies for that. And I watched a little bit of him. I watched a little bit of I can't remember the other guys' names, but just seeing, and I was actually there's some that Luke Beasley guy. He's like a super young guy. Do you see that guy? Okay, so that guy, I watched him for a while, only because he's about our students' age. I'd say, and it occurred to me, I was like, this is pretty good for a guy about that age. Good for him. Look at him being informed and having a channel and live streaming. I think, I don't know how many of our students do that, but in a communications program, I don't think that's an assignment that they should do. I think that's a calling to do that.
Guess who would love to have them do an assignment like that? This guy.
Well, so can you?
Well, I have them do a podcast, which is the audio equivalent, right? And this isn't. We are working towards me taking over all of first year pre-com. I think our boss has said that in meetings, so it's not a secret. And so when I take that over, I do hope to focus kind of the video component of it around YouTube. Yeah. Because that is the platform that everybody needs to learn how to use. Right. So it's not just about making the video, it's about posting the videos, it's about managing your audience, it's about all that stuff, just like I do for podcasting. Because I take them through the entire podcasting process, which also includes the posting of the episodes.
Posting clips on
promoting
posting clips on TikTok for social lift, doing all that stuff. I do a little of that in second semester, but here's the problem. I'm teaching first year. Running a YouTube channel, that'd be a good second year project.
But even doing it, it'd be cool to see them do it for an organization or something like that too.
Yeah, and I've thought of that too. A branded podcast. That's always some.
Well, I have them do the second year. Students have to do a brand podcast. Yes.
Oh boy, we should talk. We should talk more often because that's the kind of thing. We talk about that, and I share with them, though I don't know if they actually play it. The Ben and Jerry's podcast, which is some of the best advocacy journalism anywhere, and it's a branded podcast. And they
Okay.
don't go like at the end of the podcast. They don't go, and this was brought to you by Rocky Road Ice Cream. Like they don't go.
Not brought to you by Cherry Garcia.
Yeah, that's true. That is one of theirs.
Yeah.
Or I'm trying to think
That's
of
the only
another
one I
one.
know.
Yeah.
Or what's the Chunky Monkey? Chunky Monkey.
Chunky. Yeah. So, but they don't. So it's not an overt sales pitch. It's actual good.
Exactly what they should be doing.
Yes, it's good discussion and good good content marketing is, which is something interesting or entertaining, and that it is very interesting and a well-made podcast.
Now, you said you had something to get us into Star Wars. What was your...
Jimmy Kimmel had a very good, funny, and also at times an emotional monologue. Not really. Like his voice broke a couple times. His voice broke when he talked about what Americans who that decision would impact to elect Trump back in, and that his voice broke when he talked about immigrants and things like that. And so you could tell, and I was like, wow, like, it's hard for a comedian to be up there talking about something that's important to them. And I think comedians are generally emotional people, so it didn't surprise me.
Yep.
But you sort of saw, you saw a couple sides of Jimmy Kimmel. But at one point he had this great joke where he said Donald Trump at this point is basically the Emperor in Star Wars. It's like he keeps coming back. There's no reasonable explanation for it. Nobody can explain how, and yet the Emperor is still always standing there and always ready, for no matter what you throw at him. And it's true. And I sort of liked his tie-in to the new trilogy as well, or to the latest trilogy, saying there's no reasonable explanation for the Emperor to be there. I was like, really, there isn't.
No.
And even the dead speak. Who can forget that horrible beginning to the worst crawl ever written in a Star Wars film?
That was awful.
So the dead speak, and we could use that same crawl for the election. The dead speak.
I saw a funny video that was like, it took that speech from, I believe it's Attack of the Clones, when he says, we are now forming a new galactic empire. Whatever he says, that whole speech. And then the line is, this is how, what is it? Amidala, what does she say? This is how democracy dies, or something like that? I don't know.
Yes, to thunderous applause.
To thunderous applause, or something like, come on. But that's, again, it is the reality.
So this is how liberty dies. With thunderous applause.
I just watched the film Civil War.
Oh.
And it's actually not a film about a civil war. It's a film about a photojournalist. It turns out to be the film is about photojournalism. Did you see that movie?
No, not yet.
It's horrible.
Oh.
Okay. It's there's some great fighting scenes, but really the film is about, like, you won't believe, like, you should watch it.
Yeah, I will.
Because the film is mostly about, like, photojournalism was what's going to tip the scales for the world. That's the thing that is going to help us in the middle of a horrible civil war. A young photojournalist with an analog.
She's just a photojournalist? She doesn't have to be any other kind of journalist?
Analog camera.
Wow.
Chick. She's got to wind it up.
Not a realistic movie.
She's winding up the camera. She's learning.
Okay.
She's learning as she winds. And I will give you a Tim Hortons donut if you can't predict the ending within the first 15 minutes of the film.
All right. Well, I'll watch it and I'll get back to you on that. You had mentioned this in conversation as we were in line at Tim's. I thought that was kind of interesting. We were talking about, I'm going to dress up as Laszlo. My girlfriend and I are going to do Laszlo and Nadja from What We Do in the Shadows, which is a TV version of a movie that was very popular that came out a number of years ago. And you told me that one of the people from that movie is in the Australian Office.
Yes, that just launched this week on Netflix. I think we have access to it. I think it's
it's a new adaptation of The Office, but produced in Australia.
Yes, and as I understand it, they are using the same source material as season 1. I think the UK and
so we're gonna get like Diversity Day again.
I think the UK and the US Office. The first season was the same.
Yeah,
and or not 100% the same, but similar. And I think this follows that format, except now the characters are far more cartoony, and like.
Well, of course they are. It's like 20, like however long, 20 years after that show first came out, and it's a completely different culture.
The Australian podcasters and videocasters, YouTubers are dumping on it, unlike anything I've seen from out of Australia for quite a while.
Yeah,
and basically saying like, look. We hardly get any original content here in Australia, and we finally get our own office, and it is terrible.
Yeah.
And they showed clips from it, and it does look. It absolutely looks a little more like they're like let's make it zippier and more cartoony and more the jokes more obvious kind of thing. So it's kind of losing the subtlety a bit.
I was surprised to hear that they were doing that because I remember thinking recently I finally watched the British version of The Office, which I have on DVD, and I don't like it very much.
Oh, I love it.
Okay, you're one of those people that likes it. Yeah. I'm sorry, I don't.
It was the first one.
I know it was, but I didn't watch it when it came out, and so I'm kind of like. And I get Ricky Gervais is funny, and I look at much better in other things he's done. But what was I going to say about it? Oh yeah, so I mean, but it makes sense. They make the small series. It's only 2 seasons, and it's 6 episodes each. A very very small amount of content, and they adapt that. And this is back before we had a lot of streaming services, so network TV is still king in like the 2004-2005 era when this was happening. So they adapt this into The Office. The American Office becomes a huge sitcom hit. 9 seasons? Did they do 9 seasons of The Office? I want to say
it went on and on.
It went on 2 seasons too long. It went on 2 seasons after Steve Carell left. Yeah, which was a bad idea. Because I remember that the very first episode after Steve Carell left was horrible. It was like immediately awful. That was hilarious.
But they didn't know because they didn't know what they were doing. Who is this centered on now?
Yes. Yeah. But they brought in like Jim Carrey and Will Ferrell and all these guests. It was not good. Anyway, but here's the problem. Now we live in a world in which anybody can watch the British Office. Yeah. Anybody can watch the British version of anything. Did you know they tried to make an American version of the IT Crowd?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
With Joel McHale?
Yes, and it was heavily promoted. And they spent tons on that.
They tried to do the exact same thing as The Office. Yeah. They tried to recreate. They got Moss. They got Richard Ayoade to come and play Moss, who's like the kind of the iconic character from that. Yeah. But honestly, I liked Roy as well. Like those characters are so good. Yeah. Those actors are so good. How can you try to replicate that? And so I don't think the American Office replicated the British Office. It just took it and made it better and made it different. Fine, it made it different.
It made it popular is what it did.
Well, I think it's better. I think it's funnier, and I like the characters more. No. They have more time to breathe.
Disagree.
And it did get old by the end of it. So doing this, the thing is, there's no point. Everyone in Australia has seen The Office. Anyone who's interested has seen The Office. Has seen both versions of The Office. They do not need a third version of The Office with their own accents. It does not make sense, and it looks like a cash grab to me. It seems like a cash grab.
It actually occurred to me if they made a Canadian Office, how bad that would be. It would be terrible.
Oh, now I kind of want to see that.
No, it'd be terrible. You know it would be.
Oh man.
We'd get some Canadian actors who we know are in everything, but the rest of the world doesn't. We'd get some of them. I'm trying to think of who exactly that would be.
Oh, the guy from the CBC show that I always watch on TikTok.
Definitely guy from CBC would be in it.
Gavin McLeod, I think it's his name.
No, that's anyway. Love Boat.
Yeah, okay, it's another Gavin.
The guy who played Trudeau in the miniseries.
Yes, that guy.
What's that guy's name? He'd be in it.
Canadian treasure.
He is a treasure.
He is a Canadian treasure. I don't know. I'm going to say Victor Garber, but that's not who it is.
No. Anyway. How about us? The whole cast of Murdoch Mysteries would make an appearance. We know that.
The guy from Rogue One, or not Rogue One, the Mandalorian, Kim's Convenience.
Yes. Oh, yes. Yeah, that's right. Kim's Convenience would be there. Yeah. Oh God, we're terrible. Paul
Sun Young Kim.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Yeah. Okay, good.
Okay, so we're halfway there. We're casting the Canadian.
Okay,
Office.
Now I do want to see this. And Shang-Chi would be in it.
Yeah,
potentially.
Kind of repurpose.
He's in Dragon's Den for crying out loud.
Is he really?
Oh yes.
Oh yes, he had a boba clip go viral, right?
Yes.
What was that all about?
He said that this company, he didn't see any Asian people pitching this product, and that boba was at its heart an Asian product, and he wanted to know what they're doing about it. And I think I only saw the clip. I didn't watch the whole episode, and I guess they kind of went like laughed nervously is what they did because it kind of like
didn't think about that.
No, right, exactly. So he kind of called them out on something, but then I think he apologized for it because I think maybe he sees a lawsuit where he tanked a business. I don't know.
But that's what happens when you come on Dragon's Den. I mean, that's part of the deal, right?
If Marvel's Shang-Chi will be on Dragon's Den, he will certainly be in our version of The Office.
All right. And then, of course, Colin Mockery has to round out the cast.
He's got to be in it. He's got to be doing some improv. He's got to be making people laugh.
Let's do it. Let's make a Canadian version of The Office. We're set.
Who's going to play the Gareth and the Gareth/Dwight? Who's going to be that?
Oh, it's got to be a weird guy. Oh, yeah. What's his name? Jay Baruchel.
Oh, you're right. Oh, yes, you're right.
There we go.
Uh,
Man, we could do it. We could totally do it. But I don't think it would do well. Like, you can't just take an idea and copy it.
well, with
anymore.
our cast, I like it more. But
Okay,
I think,
well, yeah.
yeah.
I mean,
but
I don't know these Australian actors, but I just think that in this, we live in a different media world now where we have BritBox. We can see every British show, every British version, and the British version is going to be better. I know you like The Office. Most people like the British version better. I'm just bugging you. But,
no, that's not. I would say that's not. I think generationally speaking, I've learned that students love the U.S. Office, but they also aren't familiar with the British Office.
The U.S. Office is available on Netflix, and the British one is not.
Right.
So that's also part
right.
of it.
That's the main difference. I remember showing. I was in early on the British Office. I got it. I bought the DVD on spec, just because I was like, this looks. I love Office stuff that rips offices apart, like as for corporate culture and stuff. I'm like, oh, let me give this a try. And I was just screaming with laughter. I was like, everyone needs to see. And I showed my students in comedy writing class, I showed them the first episode, and they were just all quiet. They didn't, I was like, oh, this is too hip for the room. That's what this comedy is. But then when the American one was a huge success, I thought of those students, and I was like, are they saying to themselves, Larson tried to get us into this like 5 years earlier? Like, did they tell themselves that? Or did they just go, yeah, this one's better. That Larson was showing us bullshit. Which is it? I think I know which one it was.
I don't know. But the American Office still is still incredibly popular. There's that Office Ladies podcast where the two former cast members talk about, and they just got to the finale. I saw that today. I was looking at the podcast listings, and that was the newest episode. They're just talking about the series finale, which is the end of season 9, which I do think is one of the best series finales ever made.
What?
I think it was excellent.
I didn't see it.
It's very well done. They brought back Steve Carell. I'll just say that. It's a bit
of course.
But they didn't think he denied it. He was like, no, I'm not coming back. He told everybody he wasn't. So nobody expected it. And then he just shows up. So it's pretty fun.
That's pretty good. And my favorite bit of trivia, they offered James Gandolfini $1 million, or they offered him the role after Carell left. And HBO paid him $1 million to not take the role.
Really?
Yeah. He got $1 million for doing nothing, for sitting on his ass.
What would he have done in that role? Why would he do that?
I think
they wanted him to be Tony Soprano.
They wanted him to be the new boss, who is Tony Soprano. Right? You could see it, right? And you could go, that probably would be very funny. It'd be like Marlon Brando redoing his Godfather performance in The Freshman.
Yes, that was excellent, by the way. I saw that recently, yes.
It is, and he's so good at it.
Very good, yes.
He knows that role better than anybody. Yeah. So you would have got James Gandolfini knowing that role better than anybody in a new environment, and HBO thought it would be so damaging to the original brand. It was worth $1 million.
It was after the show ended, right?
Yes.
Oh, my God.
So they're like, we'll tell you what. We'll give you $1 million and you don't do that show. And he's like, sounds good to me. And he took the $1 million.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I didn't know that.
That came out on the Sopranos podcast with two of it, Michael Imperioli.
Oh, there you go. There's another podcast related to
right. And although they finished that one.
Yeah.
And and they knew that he had been, and apparently he gave some of the money to other cast members as well. Although, Carmela Soprano, why can't I think of her name? The actor who played her. She said, she's like she's in the documentary about this, and she goes, really? When he got the raise, he got, like they got money. He was like, well, I didn't get any. She said, so it's pretty funny. Oh, that was his raise. That wasn't The Office. Pardon me. The Office was after The Sopranos. Yeah. But anyway. If anyone wants to pay me $1 million not to take a role, I'm listening to offers.
But that just shows you what they're trying to, like, they're trying, almost grasping at straws, really trying to do, like, they did literally bring in a bunch of different actors, and I think almost like tryouts, and they settled on James Spader for a while.
Right.
And then Kathy Bates was on it for a while. She was the boss. So they cycled through a few different things, and they ended up, I think it was Andy ended up being the boss in the end, and he's just an annoying character. So I don't know. I still really like the American Office. I think it's a funny show, and I've actually watched it with my son. Luke loves it. He really loves it.
See, I started to watch the first season when it originally aired, and I was like, "This is shit. This is
because you're comparing it to the original.
This is a ghost version of the original one," and I was like, "Nah, not for me." So that was it. I was like, "That enough." And the more my students said they liked it, the less I wanted to watch it. It's that simple. Yeah, the opposite. The opposite effect of when people tell you something's funny and you're like, watch the first one and then tell me if you think this is fun. Like that classic argument. And do you watch the show Superstore on Netflix?
Yeah, I have seen a few episodes.
It's good. They're good episodes, and it's got a kid in the hall in it, which is always
Mark McKinney,
right, which
he's
is
very funny actually.
Yeah, and he doesn't even look like himself in the show. And the role he's playing is like like a character you would have played for one sketch on Kids in the Hall. So it's
Yeah.
funny to watch it.
Yeah, that's right.
But I heard that when America Ferrera, left the show, that the show went to shit. That was like all the news on the street. And then the other day, I was thinking to myself, I was enjoying that show, and let me just look at the ratings. And actually, strong ratings on IMDb even after she leaves the show. So maybe there's an example of something that I thought was shit based on what people said that might actually be fine.
Well, here's the thing, and these are all similar shows, and I think they're all made by the same person or similar. Like,
really,
it's Greg, who's the guy from The Office? Greg, someone or other, Conan O'Brien's former writing partner.
Yeah,
Greg, somebody or Davies. I want to say, I don't know.
Right, that guy. I know, yeah.
Who did The American Office, but he also did Parks and Rec, and someone from Parks and Rec also did Superstore and Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Right,
is another one.
Right.
Like, there's all these very similar, funny workplace comedies. They're all workplace comedies, and my thing is like, I never hang out with my workplace friends like that. I'm sorry, Kenton. We don't hang out outside of work.
Well,
we
do more than with anybody else.
Exactly. We do not hang out with our other work colleagues at all, right? And I don't know how much that happens anymore.
Yeah.
Like, that used to be a thing that was a lot more common.
I used to hang out with my work friends all the time. Like, post work was work. It was the same. It was the same thing.
Yeah.
You all hung out and whatever, went for drinks.
That's kind of what I think the comedy around the original British Office is, that they spend all day together and they kind of hate each other, and it's always awkward, and they've got this asshole of a boss, and then they go out and do things like they sing karaoke or they do things together, and it's still the same. But they still spend all their time together because they have nobody else, apparently. This group of people has nobody else in their lives. They have to spend all their time with each other, which just seems a bit much.
It's a throwback.
I guess so, yeah. It is. And maybe at the time it was relevant for the British people. But I don't know how much that happens, and I don't know how much this kind of comedy is relevant. Like, Brooklyn Nine-Nine is done. Like, Good Place is another one of these. It's the same people, right?
I think I like The Good Place, but once again, the final season, the air was out of the bag a bit. Yeah. It wasn't quite as good as what had come before.
I just don't know how you don't see a lot of these types of shows anymore, so I don't know how successful. And it sounds like this Australian one is not going to last long if it's not doing well.
I'm not going to recommend anybody watch the show, but I'm going to recommend that you watch some Australian YouTubers. Just go Australian The Office reviews on YouTube and search that, and there's some hilarious. There's some folks, like, if you want to, I like the folks who are like, what is the cultural, like, the Australian, like, the basically the Australian government has to pony money up to it. Like, it's just like Canada, pretty much. Australia, not unlike Canada. And so you just get to see all of their hilarious takes on, like, how did this thing get approved and why. And, like, there's already people who've binged the whole thing who are just like, what a nightmare kind of deal. I watched the whole thing. Okay, here we go. Mm-hmm. And I think it's the kind of thing that Canadian YouTubers would rip to shreds probably too, if there was a Canadian one. If we made our version, Dan, that we just brainstorm.
I mean, I think our version sounds better than the other one, the Australian one, but I don't know much about
that.
So.
Well, when you see, like, even just seeing clips of it, you're like, oh my goodness. Like, the person playing the lead role is playing it very broadly indeed. Like, oh, is this a stage play that I'm watching? And some like just a little big.
Okay.
Let's put it that way. And then there's a woman playing the Dwight role who looks, once again, it is such a caricature at this point of the performance that even when you see a still from the show, you're like, oh my God, like she's doing shtick. It's a little shticky.
Okay.
And what I like about the British one is Gareth, what's his name again? Mackenzie. Oh, I can't think of it. Anyway, the actor playing Gareth is a weird guy in the show who exists in real life. And that's part of what makes it fun. It's like Office Space, the Milton.
Oh, Milton, yeah.
That guy exists in real life, who's like kind of whispery and doesn't have any friends and works in the basement.
Yeah.
Like, that's what makes that work. You can't just go, we need someone weird for the sake of being weird.
Right.
It's got to be like something recognizable at the heart of that character. And I don't know that there is in this Australian one, but maybe I'm wrong. But
I'll check it out and I'll let you know what I think.
It seems like the critical consensus is thumbs down.
Okay. Let's finish off with some recommendations this week, Kenton. I will start with, I'm continuing to do my 31 Days of Horror. I'm keeping on track this year
You're
very
doing
well.
lots, I know.
I'm a little behind in making the videos, but I am watching a movie every day. And this week was Classic Horror Week. So I'm exploring some classic horror films that I'd never seen, and I'm a little ashamed to admit that because some of these are movies that you should absolutely see, and that one of those is Nosferatu. The original silent film, 1922.
That's
this was
the
made.
one.
I was just blown away about how good this movie looks. It's a black and white film. It's a silent film. It's beautifully shot. It looks so creepy. The special effects are amazing for what they can do back then. This is more than 100 years ago. And they got this done.
And it's legitimately creepy.
It is.
It's horrifying.
Yeah. But even the clever ways in which, like, I haven't watched a lot of silent films, but they do things like they'll show a guy reading a newspaper and then they'll show the paper so we can read it too, right? So so they convey what's happening through print in that way, and then they also use letters between characters and other methods like that. So they really keep you engaged, and they're always showing something to keep you like watching and interested in the story. The performances are amazing. All these people, they have to be super expressive because they can't talk, and so they're like really emoting well. The guy who plays Renfield, I love. He is so good. He's just kind of this creepy old man who kind of like, Master's coming, Master, man. And he's just, it's just amazing. And I had to look into it after I finished watching it, and I didn't know this, but so it was an unofficial version of Dracula. It was unlicensed, and they adapted the book without permission, and they changed some of the names, so it's Count Orloff instead of Count Dracula. But they were still sued by the family of Bram Stoker, and the judge in the case ordered all copies of Nosferatu destroyed because of that. They said it's a violation of copyright and you can't have it. So they destroyed a bunch of copies, but obviously not all of them because it still survives. And it was a long time before it was re-released. So it's just a fascinating story, and I just look at it now, and you can see how much it influences horror, like all the beats, all the main things. I mean, that's Dracula also influencing horror, but Nosferatu put it on the screen for the first time. It was just so well done. I have to imagine. I've not seen a lot of movies from this era, but I have to imagine this is one of the best made movies of the time.
You know, I'm always blown away by how quickly in film history they mastered the medium. When you watch some of those old films, you're like, how did they knew already how to tell a story in film, or they figured it out really quickly. Yeah. It stuns me. Like, I don't quite understand how they invented the language of film on the fly in quite the way they did, because it is very effective even by today's standards.
Especially since they didn't have they had to develop the film and stuff. They couldn't look at it on a screen the way we do now.
Exactly.
So they can't see the framing of it necessarily, and then they have a viewfinder, but still, it was just really well done. So I'm very happy about that. I love Nosferatu, and I'm going to look for like a special edition of it or something so I can have it. Although it is free, it's in the public domain, so you can get it free streaming pretty much anywhere.
But even the films of Chaplin, like those hold up, those silent films. Buster Keaton, like Harold Lloyd, like, oh my God, you see those films, and once again, like, those are legitimately entertaining films by today's standards. And I don't know how they did it, but Nosferatu is a great film.
It's amazing, yes.
Oh, it is so good.
Yep.
All right, so my recommendations is different than yours, and I'm going to recommend the show that's on YouTube. If you search BBC Music, and it's Later with Jules Holland. It is a music show, and it's a simple format where here's 6 bands. They're on the show. They used to have an audience standing around with the bands, which I really like, but they've sort of got rid of that during COVID. So it's bands, just people touring England at the time with new albums, pretty much. And they just started a new season. And you can see all the music clips on BBC Music on YouTube. There's no commercials because it's a public broadcaster, so that's a nice little benefit.
We can't get that.
I know. Why? I don't get it.
I don't know.
So it's just a joy to watch it.
Our public broadcaster has commercials.
I'm like, for discovering new music, it's so good. Yeah. And it's like, why can't we have a show like this in Canada? Or North America, for that matter?
Because their CEO are too busy defending their bonuses.
Yeah.
What's happening?
Yeah. It doesn't. There used to be music related shows on CBC all the time, and I don't know what happened. But so I was watching the clips from Later with Jules Holland on BBC Music, and a band called Blossoms showed up on there, and I was familiar with them because they play Smith songs. They were the backing band with Rick Astley playing Smith songs. And they go around, they played Glastonbury. So I knew the band from that. But they're on the show with their new album. The album's called Gary, and it's named after a big gorilla mascot that was outside a store, I think it was Ireland, and somebody stole it and put it on the back of a truck. And the lead singer said, so he read this article, and then he put facts from the article into the song called Gary. So he's like, oh, he weighed this many pounds. Okay, that goes in the song. He weighed this many pounds. And they sort of show the behind the scenes of how he wrote the song, which is hilarious. And then they made a video for Gary. I'm going to look up online to see whether they actually found the real gorilla. And now the band's touring with this big gorilla statue behind them, which is very funny. And he describes it. Jules Holland is the host of the show. And he's like, let me tell you the story of Gary. And they've got the big gorilla standing there, which is very funny. But they played a song on the show called Perfect Me, from the single from the new album. And I was like, that is just a great song. It's a great band. They kind of they're a throwback. The lead singer kind of looks a bit like David Bowie meets the Strokes. I think they have a little Pete Townsend, Let My Love Open the Door sample maybe in the background. It's hard to tell, but I think I heard it. And I was like, Blossoms, okay, here's a new band. I'm going to buy their album. What day is it? Tomorrow. I'm going to buy the album tomorrow on the strength of that live performance. I think just great, and a great TV show. We need that show. There is a show that Netflix should make, which is different versions of Later with Jules Holland. That'd be great. Different for different countries.
Yeah, that would work well, I think. Anyway.
Get 6 bands every week.
Yeah, you could totally do that. It's a good idea for an ongoing show that you're always going to have new people coming in there, right? So, all right, well, check it out. Sounds like a lot of fun. I love British media. I watch all kinds of British shows. So
some of the best.
Fun. Yes, it is. Very good.
Yeah.
All right, that's going to do it for this episode of the Media Nerds. I'm Dan Vadabonker.
I'm Kenton Larson. Don't let the door hit you on the ass.